Okay, we are diving deep with these running backs here, and we have some updates in the top 24, some news that I have to bring to your light. So, of course, please don't just skim to the end of this video, look at those rankings, and tell me in the comment section, Mason, you're a clown, you have no idea what you're talking about, you're the dumbest person I've ever heard. All those things can easily be true, but at least hear my explanation, hear my point of view before you give me yours down there in the comment section. But before we get into it, also go down there, drop a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you play fantasy football and somehow you are not subscribed already. And let's dive into these rankings and tiers. We're going to go very fast through the top 24 guys, and then we're going to spend a little bit more time at the end because we've already covered these top 24 guys at length. But let's start it off with Jonathan Taylor and Christian McCaffrey in tier 1. We have had an update here. We are moving CMC up there with JT. The reason we did this is Baker Mayfield. I hate to come out here and brand myself as some Baker Mayfield fanboy. I've been a Baker Mayfield hater for years. Look at the University of Texas wall that I have right next to me. You think I like Baker Mayfield? But what I can say is he's a lot better than what Christian McCaffrey's dealt with over the past 3 years. He is a lot better than the quarterback that they had in 2019. And what is great about Baker fitting in with CMC in particular is Baker Mayfield's not a rushing quarterback. Baker Mayfield's not going to be Taysom Hill, Trey Lance, Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson. This guy that all of a sudden is not going to feel the need to dump the ball off to CMC. No, Baker Mayfield's not mobile. Baker Mayfield will have a high dump off rate as well for Christian McCaffrey. I think the overall offense is going to be significantly better than it would have been with Sam Darnold, even if I don't necessarily love Baker the player. So we are going to move Christian McCaffrey up here to tier 1. I think you could even make the argument in a full PPR format, if you're willing to take the risk, you take him over Jonathan Taylor. I'll still have Taylor at 1, however, just because I think you clearly don't have the same concern for injuries. Now, our next running back tier, I almost want to put them 2 tiers down, because these are guys that I am not going to be drafting very often. If you have to take them at pick 3, pick 4, pick 5, I honestly prefer like all our tier 1 wide receivers ahead of them. We're going to have Austin Eckler and Najee Harris here. Now, I will say there are serious red flags with these running backs. With Eckler, this is someone that scored 20 touchdowns last year, and that is an extreme outlier from what we have seen throughout all of Austin Eckler's career. Now, I will say he really is going to have the best quarterback play of his career this upcoming season. Obviously, the coaching change last year helped out the entire offense as well, but I am going to be expecting some touchdown regression. I do think Isaiah Spiller is going to be the best running back that Eckler's played with as well since Melvin Gordon. So I am concerned with Eckler, and I would not be drafting him over Kupp. I would not be drafting him over Jefferson. I would not be drafting him ahead of Chase, regardless of the format that you're playing in. And with Najee Harris, a very high floor, one of the safest picks you can make in fantasy, but I am going to be concerned about the lack of explosion, the lack of big plays, the overall offensive environment that he will be playing in, to the point where, very similar to Austin Eckler, these are almost running backs that, while yes, I'm ranking them as top 5 guys, if you were to have to draft them in the middle of round 1, I'm not doing it. I'm preferring an elite level wide receiver there. But if they were to fall to the middle or the end of round 1, I'm going to be excited about it. Like literally, I sent this out in Discord this morning, but I was ecstatic to start a draft off with Derrick Henry round 1, Najee Harris round 2 earlier this morning on Underdog Fantasy. Underdog Fantasy is going to be a little bit different because clearly in that best ball format, you are going to have wider receivers sliding up draft board. So sometimes drafters will go crazy. You'll get Najee Harris in the second. And of course, you should be ecstatic about that. But real quick, if you're not drafting on Underdog Fantasy, if you're not taking advantage of that value, make sure you go sign up ASAP. I'm sure y'all have seen us drafting on Underdog Fantasy every single night on the live stream because there's nothing more fun. And when you sign up for Underdog Fantasy and you use promo code FLOCK, they will match your first deposit dollar for dollar up to $100. You'll get our 2022 rankings. You'll get our 2022 draft guide literally with a $10 deposit on Underdog Fantasy with promo code FLOCK. That's like 300 pages of quality information to help you crush your fantasy football drafts. Most importantly, you'll have some fun in fantasy drafts with us in the live stream and in the public lobby. But let's move down to our next tier. Let's go over to our running back 5, someone that we are going to have significantly ahead of consensus. I'm going to go with Joe Mixon. Now, if I go ahead and if I pull up my 2022 fantasy football draft guide just to give you my explanation on why I am so high on Joe Mixon, just like I was last year. I mean, here, this is a running back that, if anything, can only get better. He was the running back 7 on a points per game basis last year. He has never had a season with less than 70% of his carries on a per game basis over the past 3 years. He's had a target share almost close to 10% in this offense as well. So you know that Mixon will be someone that's used in the receiving game. Now, no, he's not Austin Eckler in the receiving game. That's why he's not in the same tier as Austin Eckler. But this is a team that, according to PFF, is going from a bottom 10 offensive line in the NFL to now with the additions of Lyle Collins, Alex Kappa, Ted Karras, and even Hayden Hurst is going to be a massive upgrade in the blocking department over CJ Uzomah. They're going from bottom 10 in offensive line play to top 10 in offensive line play. I think based off of that, they're going to have a more efficient offense overall, and they will be able to run more plays because they're not going to have to be as concerned with protecting Joe Burrow. Wheels up for Mixon. He's only 25. He's only 25 now. If Mixon was not 3 to 4 years younger than Derrick Henry, yes, Derrick Henry would be above him. But in a full PPR format, I will have Derrick Henry down here at 6. Like I said, if you're drafting on Underdog, sometimes you can get Derrick Henry at pick 10. Now, if you're at a casual draft, Derrick Henry's going to be going like 2, 3, or 4. And there, I'm not paying the price. I'm taking an elite level wide receiver. But I will admit, dear God, if you look over the past 3 years with Derrick Henry, he's only getting better. Historically speaking, no running backs in their age 28 season are really producing in today's NFL. But I had a comment on a Derrick Henry video a while ago. People saying, Mason, you can't bring up age with Derrick Henry. He's the LeBron James of football. It doesn't matter. He's a complete outlier. It just doesn't matter with him, which may be true. So we are going to still keep him here as a mid running back 1, despite the age. Dalvin Cook at 7, not much to talk about. Elite ceiling, injury concerns. Now let's drop it down to tier. We have Aaron Jones and DeAndre Swift back to back. I am going to prefer Aaron Jones. I think with DeAndre Swift, y'all know he was one of our most drafted players last year, a must draft option because he is the new age Aaron Jones, the new age Alvin Kamara, running back getting every target out of their backfield as well as every touch in the red zone, every valuable touch in their offense. Aaron Jones is still getting that. And he's playing in an offense with Aaron Rodgers rather than Jared Goff. For that reason, I'm going to have Aaron Jones still ranked ahead of DeAndre Swift, even if A.J. Dillon's going to be getting the carries between the 20-yard lines. Now, moving down to our next tier, we're going to have Saquon Barkley leading us off here at pick 10. Now, with Saquon Barkley, this is a running back that, yes, you have injury concerns. I get it, but also you have an elite level ceiling. If we go back to his 2019 season, the last time we saw Saquon Barkley fully healthy, almost a 20% team target share and 72% of his team's carries on a per game basis. The only other running back we've seen over the past 3 years do that, Christian McCaffrey. That's the type of ceiling that Saquon Barkley has. In my $500 fantasy football draft over there on Underdog Fantasy, I recently drafted CMC and Saquon Barkley on the same team in a $500 draft. So, of course, that's a little bit concerning with the injury concerns. I will be the first person to admit it, but still, based on the upside, you do have to rank him as a top 10 guy. Now, let's bring in Fat Lenny here at pick 11. Leonard Fournette, clearly a better athlete than I could ever dream to be, but does show up to camp looking a little bit out of shape. They do go out of their way to draft Rashaad White in round 3. Rashaad White, arguably one of the best pass-catching running backs in the NFL this season. So if you're going to be expecting that White has a role here as a receiver, even if it's a small one, that is going to be very concerning for Leonard Fournette. But hell, if you look at his production last year, look at the offense he's playing in. Of course, Leonard Fournette still has to be a top 12 guy. Nick Chubb at 12. We're waiting for Watson. Let's move on. Going down to our next tier, we got Javonte Williams leading us off. Javonte Williams, if Melvin Gordon were not to re-sign, Javonte would be up there with Najee Harris. That is where we would have him. But if you look at games what both of these running backs played last year, it was a damn near 50-50 split with Melvin Gordon averaging more fantasy points per game, Melvin Gordon averaging more carries per game, more rushing yards per game. I'm expecting Javonte to be the running back 1 this upcoming season, 100%, but still being a committee. So we are going to have him here at 13. Running back 14, James Conner. If James Conner stays healthy and you look at the splits in games that Chase Edmonds missed last year, you would say, hell, James Conner's a top 5 running back. What the hell are we doing? But James Conner, of course, has been a running back that you do have to concern yourself with some of these injuries. And also, we saw another running back recently in Arizona with Kenyon Drake look pretty damn good and then phase out the next year whenever the team did decide to plan to use him as that feature down running back. Cliff Kingsbury maybe has a little bit of Kyle Shanahan in him. But our last running back in this tier, we'll have Alvin Kamara. Can't talk on it. We're waiting for the suspension. Kamara is the top 5 running back when he plays, but maybe he misses 6 games. By the time y'all get this video, maybe something comes out, but as of now, nothing has. Now let's go down our next tier, Travis Etienne at 16. Travis Etienne, I'm looking at him as discount DeAndre Swift. Instead of passing on Mike Evans in your fantasy draft for DeAndre Swift, and then having to take, say, freaking Hollywood Brown over Travis Etienne later, no, I would rather take the wide receiver early, set ourselves up with the discount DeAndre Swift in Travis Etienne later in drafts, because this is another running back that should get every target out of his backfield as well as every touch in the red zone. Yet the difference is Jacksonville doesn't have as many capable pass catchers as Detroit does this year. So maybe, just maybe, you even see a higher target share overall for Travis Etienne in Jacksonville. But now let's go over to our next guy. Let's go to Cam Akers, pick 17. Here with Cam Akers, this is a running back that checked every single box coming out as a prospect. However, looks very bad after returning from the torn Achilles last year. Now, I'm mainly willing to overlook that, considering the fact that Cam Akers probably shouldn't have returned. He was 6 months removed from a torn Achilles, which is way more devastating than a torn ACL. Now that he has an entire offseason to rehab, I will expect Akers to be closer to what he was at the end of his 2019 year. And if I pull up our 2022 fantasy football draft guide, which of course is available on flockfantasy.com, you will see that the end of his rookie season was truly absurd. Looking at the last 6 weeks, 21 carries, 29 carries, 15 carries, 21 carries, 28, 18. Averaged 100 rushing yards a game in the playoffs. Had a couple spike weeks receiving as well. Love Cam Akers. Love the offense. Our last running back in this tier is going to be Ezekiel Elliott. Yes, I don't think you should be drafting Zeke over Etienne. I don't think you should be drafting him over Akers, especially in a PPR format with Ezekiel Elliott. It is not that this past year he finally disappointed because the torn PCL. No, Ezekiel Elliott has had fewer rushing yards per game every single year since 2016. Every single year, Ezekiel Elliott has gotten worse and worse and worse. And makes sense. He has the most active career touches in the NFL for a running back outside of Mark Ingram. Sometimes if you're going to handle 2,000 carries in the regular season in the playoffs, it's going to affect your play. But now let's drop down to our next tier. We'll go over to Breece Hall, David Montgomery. I love Breece Hall as a prospect. Checks every single box. Very bad offense in New York. I will admit that. Definitely concerned with the Jets. But you are looking at him as a running back that can catch passes out of the backfield. And if you're a running back that can handle a 3-down workload and catch passes, even in a bad offense, you can be effective. I mean, think about James Robinson being a mid-running back one his rookie season in Jacksonville, despite the Jacksonville Jaguars being the worst team in the NFL, getting the number 1 overall pick to select Trevor Lawrence. David Montgomery, pick 20, very similar to Breece Hall, 3-down running back in one of the worst offenses in the NFL. Chicago will have bad quarterback play, horrible receivers, and one of the worst offensive lines in the NFL. I think right now PFF has them graded out as the second worst offensive line in the NFL. However, based off of volume and volume alone, especially as target share ticking up over the past few seasons, maybe David Montgomery can still be that mid running back too. Now, our next tier down, we're going to have Dobbins and Josh Jacobs, 21, 22. Don't feel like there's too much to talk about. I think we know who both these guys are. Dobbins led the NFL in yards per carry his rookie season, going to be hyper efficient in an offense that has a good offensive line, as well as obviously a dynamic quarterback that just provides a very efficient rushing offense overall. But he's going to be in a committee. He won't get targets. So we will have Dobbins at 21. And then beyond that, our next tier, starting off at 23, recently, I decided to move Elijah Mitchell over Antonio Gibson. I am concerned with Elijah Mitchell. We talk about this in the live stream all the time, but if we go ahead and if we pull up Elijah Mitchell's chapter in our 2022 Fantasy Football Draft Guide, you will see that Kyle Shanahan has had a different leading rusher for the 49ers every single year since taking over as his head coach. Carlos Hyde, 2017. Matt Breida, 2018. Tevin Coleman 2019, Jeff Wilson 2020, Elijah Mitchell 2021. We've been talking about it all offseason, but at the end of the day, Elijah Mitchell was a mid running back 2 last year as a rookie. He averaged 100 yards a game. While yes, Trey Lance comes in and will probably vulture some of those rushing touchdowns at the goal line. Hell, Deebo Samuel had 8 rushing touchdowns last year. Maybe Lance vultures Deebo Samuel's rushing touchdowns at the goal line rather than Elijah Mitchell. So we do need to move Elijah Mitchell up. I'm drafting him more than I was previously, especially on Underdog. Go sign up, draft with us, use promo code FLOCK. He's falling to the 6-7 turn, which I think that is a very reasonable price point. So we are going to be moving Elijah Mitchell to running back 23. But now our next running back we'll have at 24 is going to be Antonio Gibson. Here with Antonio Gibson, he has increased through the first 2 years of his NFL career his carry percentage on a per game basis in this offense and his target share on a per game basis in this offense. Of course, we all know the concerns that we've had with Antonio Gibson, a running back that, yes, does have way too much competition in this offense. You got Brian Robinson selected inside the top 100 picks to potentially be that guy handling a workload if Antonio Gibson were to continue struggling to fumble the ball, and J.D. McKissic to cap a ceiling on passing downs. But if you just take a step back, look at the elite athletic profile that he has, look at the fact that he's a 228-pound running back that ran a 4.39 40-yard dash that has played the running back position for 2 years. He was a wide receiver in school. It's still probably safe to say that Antonio Gibson should have upside. This should be the best offense he's playing in his entire NFL career with Carson Wentz coming over to Washington. So Gibson is someone I'm drafting more of now that he's falling to the 7th round on Underdog in almost every single draft. Now, let's go outside those top 24. Let's stay in this tier. Let's go over to A.J. Dillon, pick 25. Very smart drafters are drafting A.J. Dillon above Antonio Gibson, above Elijah Mitchell. I'm having a hard time getting there because I will 100% admit, yeah, A.J. Dillon is going to have a role on a week-to-week basis, even with Aaron Jones being healthy. You're going to have A.J. Dillon, very similar to what he saw last year, with about 42% of the carries on a per-game basis here in Green Bay. He had 65 total yards a game, and the touchdown rate honestly wasn't even that bad. He had 11 carries a game, only 2 targets a game, and 0.4 touchdowns. Now, the reason you're drafting A.J. Dillon, the reason we're ranking him here, is not for the role that he will have in games that Aaron Jones plays, because I still do think Aaron Jones gets the usage in the red zone. That's what we've seen over the past 2 seasons. However, we could see the Green Bay Packers skew to be a little bit more run-heavy with the departure of Davante Adams. And on top of that, if we are going to be looking at A.J. Dillon, please go to the comment section. If you're watching this as a premiere right now, go to the premiere chat and let me know, where do you think A.J. Dillon would be drafted if Aaron Jones goes down before the season? Is A.J. Dillon a top 10 running back? I personally think that he is immediately, because if we look at the few games where you had Aaron Jones missing, it's not like A.J. Dillon came in and was exactly who we thought he was. We thought he was going to be a slightly worse version of Derrick Henry. It's hilarious to see that both running backs in Derrick Henry and A.J. Dillon ran a 4.53 40-yard dash at 247 pounds at the combine. We thought he was going to be a poor man's Derrick Henry, but he was a poor man's Derrick Henry who caught passes. A.J. Dillon was able to be involved as a pass catcher in games where Aaron Jones were to miss. That's not something we expected coming into the NFL, and it does 100% raise his ceiling. I'm going to have him here in the same tier as Elijah Mitchell and Antonio Gibson. Clearly, if Aaron Jones stays healthy, you're overdrafting him, but if he were to go down, I think you're getting a pretty damn good value. Now, let's drop it down a tier. Let's go over to our running back 26, looking at Clyde EdwardsHelaire. Being drafted as a high-end running back 3, I've actually found myself drafting Clyde EdwardsHelaire a decent amount on Underdog this offseason because you're getting him in the 8th round. And I do not want to come out here and make too many excuses. I don't want to be going down to the comment section saying, oh, Clyde EdwardsHelaire, he had gallbladder surgery, he lost 15 pounds, he's only 5'8". 15 pounds is a ton for a 5'8" guy before the season starts. I don't know how we didn't get that report before last season. I don't know why we had to learn about that a year later. But we can sit here, we can blame it on that. We could blame it on the long list of injuries that Clyde EdwardsHelaire dealt with last season. But I will just say, I think Clyde EdwardsHelaire is probably a bad running back. Okay? I think he's probably a bad running back. But at the same time, if I'm able to draft a potential starting running back for the Kansas City Chiefs outside the top 24 guys, if I'm able to draft the starting running back for the Kansas City Chiefs as a high-end running back 3 in the 8th round, that pick has upside. Because even if Clyde EdwardsHelaire were to be bad, if he could just draw targets and have the red zone role in Kansas City, he will return value on his ADP. But what if the people who claim that Clyde EdwardsHelaire is good, that look to the injuries and blame his early career struggles on those, if somehow, some way Clyde EdwardsHelaire is actually a good running back, there's a good running back being hidden deep, deep down, then dear God, it could be a potential league-winning pick to take CEH here. So I think it's a pick that you're making, and if you miss small, but if you hit big. Now, let's go to our other running back in this tier, Miles Sanders, running back 27, playing behind the best offensive line in the NFL. And I know a lot of people come out here and they want to say, oh, the Philadelphia Eagles, they want to throw the ball. They're going to throw the ball with A.J. Brown this upcoming season, yada, yada, yada. Are we sure? Because if we look at Philadelphia last year in game-neutral environments, the Philadelphia Eagles were the second most run-heavy team in the NFL, only behind the New England Patriots. In game-neutral environments, they were the second most run-heavy team in the NFL, only behind the Patriots. You're removing Jordan Howard, who last year had 86 carries, over 400 rushing yards, and 3 rushing touchdowns. With Miles Sanders, his workload was there. He had 11 carries a game. He had almost 3 targets a game. Now, of course, he was only the running back 41, but that's because he scored a total of 0 touchdowns. Now, if we get some positive touchdown regression, if Kenneth Walker, if Boston Scott aren't stealing all those TDs from Miles Sanders, I do think he can return value at this price point, especially if they phase out 27-year-old Boston Scott. I actually don't mind the idea of drafting both Miles Sanders and Kenneth Gainwell. I think both their price points, considering this is the best offensive line in football, I think they're attainable. Now, let's go to our next tier. Leading off is going to be a player that has plummeted down fantasy football draft boards because training camp reports have come out and he's not the starter, Kenneth Walker. Now, I understand, yes, Rashaad Penny is the starting running back in Seattle. Rashaad Penny is the starter. Now, this isn't Rashaad Penny's first time getting the opportunity to start. Rashaad Penny, I've always loved, but he's always let us down because he is one of the very few players that has simply not been able to stay healthy. If we go and look at how Rashaad Penny scored in our running back prospect model coming out of college, literally, he's next to guys like Gurley, Jonathan Taylor, Zeke, Joe Mixon, Christian McCaffrey. Like, Rashaad Penny's the only bust in this range. But it's because the man can't stay healthy. There's a reason that the Seattle Seahawks, who have access to doctors who are able to evaluate Rashaad Penny, went, you know what? Yeah, Rashaad Penny broke out. He was a fantastic RB for us down the stretch. But instead of signing Rashaad Penny to a long-term deal, let's sign him to a 1-year contract and let's draft his replacement in the NFL draft. Let's draft someone new. I don't think Penny's going to be able to hold on to the job very long. I think that Penny will go down. It will go to Kenneth Walker, and I'm unsure if Rashaad Penny will get it back. And training camp reports coming out saying, oh, Treylon Burks is playing behind Nick Westbrook-Ikhine. Oh, Kenneth Walker's playing behind Rashaad Penny. That's what you should come to expect. There's no coaching staff in their right mind that would come out and in front of the entire fan base, in front of their entire locker room, more importantly, say, hey guys, these veterans behind me that have been with me for years, that have been putting in work for years, that have been doing everything we want them to. I know Rashaad Penny just signed a deal with us because we trusted him, but no, he's not the starter anymore. It's the new guy that walked into the locker room this morning. I haven't really seen him. We haven't made him go out there and try out for it, but we're just going to give him the start. Why would they say that? Of course, if you're a coaching staff, your job is to say, oh no, the guys I've been with, the guys that worked for it super long, been in the building for years, he's the starter, and that should be the case going into the season. And then it's a tale as old as time. The rookie takes over halfway through the year, and that's the player you want. Now, our next running back, Tony Pollard, running back 29. Pollard is going way before this on Underdog. Tony Pollard is going before Clyde EdwardsHelaire on Underdog. Tony Pollard is sneaking before Miles Sanders on Underdog. People are crazy. I know his workload has increased every single year through his NFL career. I know he's been hyper efficient compared to Ezekiel Elliott. But come on, guys. Why are we drafting Pollard here if you can't start him when Zeke's healthy and you can just get Alexander Mattison later? It's the same exact situation. You're drafting a handcuff running back that has an elite level ceiling. The only difference is Dalvin Cook has missed time every single season of his NFL career. And the only time Ezekiel Elliott misses time is due to suspension. Now, our last running back inside our top 30 is indeed going to be Mr. Kareem Hunt. Y'all know I like Hunt. I can't say too much. Obviously, we're waiting on the Watson news, but if Watson is not suspended the entire season, there could be some league-winning upside down the stretch in this Cleveland Browns offense. It's entirely possible. Watson's gone for the entire year, so of course, these rankings will be updated as soon as we get news. But thank you again. I appreciate all y'all. I really hope you have a great day. Really hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, go down there, drop a like, leave a comment, subscribe, and yeah, go sign up for Underdog Fantasy. Get ready to hop in some fantasy football drafts with us. You can try to crush us, but probably ain't happening. We're probably coming for you, but I appreciate you and hope you have a great day.